morning and welcome back, everybody. The Now Morning Show here. We are live on TTT, live on Talk City 91.1 FM, and live on Facebook at TTT Live Online. We want to talk a little bit about the Sex Offenders Registry. Yay or nay? We have with us Mr. Marcus Kissoon, Research Officer, Break the Silence, and Mr. Colin Robinson of CAISO, Sex and Gender Justice. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome.
Good morning.
A lot of debate taking place with the Sex Offenders Registry, the Sex Offenders Amendment Bill, which is before the Parliament at this time. What are your thoughts on this, Colin?
There's been a lot of constructive debate. I think 18 senators spoke on the bill. There are a lot of things that haven't been talked about, and that's why the detection rate, the prosecution rate for sexual offenses is so low. And that's a conversation that we want to get started. We've had a success in that we've had the bill referred to a special select committee. So there's going to be the opportunity for survivors of sexual violence and providers and advocates to talk more and to inform the Parliament more. So we're looking forward to the weeks ahead.
So you think that there should be more discussion before anything happens?
Yeah, there should be more informed discussion. There are lots of things that the Parliament is deeply concerned about. There are others that we'd like to put on their radar.
Marcus, what are your main concerns about this bill?
Well, the evolution of technology and all of that contributes to how sexual crimes has also evolved. So the reason why the coalition of stakeholders and NGOs are coming together is to put their experiences in the making of this particular policy and legislation, because dynamics are changing. The way in which perpetrators are grooming and finding victims has also evolved, and we want all of those experiences to one, reach the ear of the legislators, as well as to reach the actual document itself, so it could protect all vulnerable communities.
But the thing with the Sexual Offenders Registry is that some studies have said that it can cause more harm than good, because people will be stigmatized, one, and there may be a less chance of them going to seek help if they need it.
And those are two of our recommendations regarding the current legislation. The biggest problem is that people don't report. When people do report, very often it doesn't become a case. So if that doesn't happen, nobody's going on the registry. One of our biggest recommendations is that people who are convicted get help. And that has to be part of the legislation. Otherwise, a registry in itself is not going to do as much good as it could. A registry is an important goal because it allows the police, the authorities, to track people. Mm-hmm. Whether it's made public is part of the debate, and to whom. There is a legitimate need to know for some people, but not for everybody.
But isn't it somebody's right that they know the type of people that live in their community?
Well, where do we draw the line? Certainly for people who are serving children. Mm-hmm. The bill doesn't yet provide robust measures for them to do, for example, a lookup. If I'm trying to hire somebody to work with kids or vulnerable people, that's a justifiable right to know, and we support the ability of people in those roles to know.
Yes, that kind of micromanaging is very vital in terms of hiring and all of that. However, being an advocate in communities for so long, my question is, the legislation and the registry is just a punitive action that's supposed to support a particular type of culture around protecting children. It is supposed to support the idea that parents are supposed to take responsibility still and continue taking responsibility to the bond and relationships and the well-being of their children. It's not so. As much as the registry is going to be punitive, the coalition is coming together to ensure that it's just not about punishing, but also getting the help for offenders, getting the help for offenders' families, maintaining respect for offenders' families, because families don't do anything, per se to be shamed as well, right? How do we protect victims from being re-traumatized by having this visibility of the perpetrator out there?
But how do we protect these people when they are convicted of sexual crime? How do we protect them from members of the public who would want to carry out some sort of vigilante justice?
And that is on the table right now. We are actually trying to hypothesize how, or think through, how do we prevent our Trinbagonians from taking justice into their own hands. Fear and anger is a scary emotion, and it could lead people into pathways that we don't want them to go down. And that's why the coalition is coming together to see how best we could mitigate and find a solution that does protect everyone, and that is even people who think vigilante.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we want the law to heal and to reintegrate offenders. That's the best case scenario. And we'd love for the legislators to tweak the legislation so it does more than punish.
Yeah, but a main concern as well is that a lot of sex offenders are family members, people that you are close with.
And that's
and
the
probably
point.
that is a reason why people don't want to make a report.
Yeah. Many sex offenders, particularly sex offenders against children, are already known, and many of them are not prosecuted.
Yeah.
Even if they're reported, reports are not taken particularly seriously. There's some numbers in a recent IDB study, Inter-American Development Bank, that shows that if 75 women reported an incident, 75 women experienced an incident, 12 would report it. In 6 cases, it would become a legal case, and there'd be 1 conviction. We need to work on that end as well, not just on the end of once there's a conviction, we put somebody into a register.
So that is some of the changes that you would probably want to see with the bill as it is now. But when you talk about this now, you have to look at it from the person who was affected.
Yes.
So the victim.
Yes, very survivor-oriented, very survivor-centered, yes, sir.
How do we look to protect the victims in this case? Because if the person is back out on the street, even if they are rehabilitated or not, that may have some sort of psychological impact on the victim.
Right, and go ahead, Colin.
No, actually, we want to change the language from victim to survivor, first of all.
Yeah, and that's what I keep saying is it's survivor-centered, right? So we're thinking, how do we continue protecting the survivor, the person who has been affected by this sexual crime, by this perpetrator? And we want to acknowledge the fact that justice comes with a particular kind of re-traumatizing, right? And we really do need to, that's why we just don't want a registry. We want a holistic approach as to we want courts that are designed for survivors, for children, for reporting purposes. We want specialized institutions and specialized service providers that work with, right? And not just a piece of legislation that is wholly and solely about punitive actions. We want the survivor to be able to have their hands held and walk through the system and not felt left alone, right? Because so much investment is going to be put into this registry and monitoring this registry. And again, we almost seem to be turning a blind eye to survivors. What about the post-counseling? What about some sort of remuneration and support post-trauma, right? We want all of these elements included to support a whole rape, assault, sexual assault crime mechanism, right?
And we're encouraged by some of the things that the Attorney General said, that the government is looking to eventually perhaps creating a specialized court to deal with these issues. Our goals for the legislation are a little bit more modest. We want to make sure there's rehabilitation mandated. That's not in the bill. We want to narrow the focus of who's captured in terms of sexual offenses. Right now, teachers and parents who fail to report will become sex offenders in the registry, and they'll have HIV tests, and the people they fail to report will be given their HIV status. That has to change. We want poor people who are coming off the register to come off as easily as rich people and not have to have a lawyer to go to court. So those are some of the changes that we'd like the current bill to make.
You talk about coming off the registry, and I just want to get a quick response to this. That should be in there, that after a while the name come off?
That is in there.
It is.
Yeah.
But you have to go to court to do that.
Right. And okay, so this is an interesting conversation that I'm sure we would continue to have over the next couple of weeks. Marcus Kissoon, Colin Robinson, thank you very much for coming on and chatting with us this morning.
Thank you for giving the public an opportunity to talk about these issues.